In this video today, I'm going to show you how to use the Curves tool to quickly improve your images. What is happening, people? My name is Gorav and I'm a travel and a wedding photographer based in Birmingham, England. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on luminosity curves only. Luminosity is just a fancy word of brightness in photography terms. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So here we are in Adobe Lightroom Classic and we're going to be working on one of my travel photos that I captured in India. And if you haven't already watched my video on the histogram, I would recommend that you go ahead and watch that. You can click the banner above and watch that video. It is very helpful if you're trying to learn how to use curves. So what is the Luminosity Curves tool? It's basically to control the shadows, midtones and the highlights in your image via graph. Let me show you what I mean. It does sound complicated, I promise you it isn't. So this is the Luminosity Curves tool. We're just going to leave it on here. We're going to leave it on point curves, and all it is a diagonal line that goes through. At the bottom here, this controls the shadows. In the middle here, this controls the midtones, as you can see, and at the top here, this controls the highlights. As you can see, this is only affecting the highlights. What I like to do is I like to make a middle point here. So if I move the shadows, it's not going to affect the midtones. But if I don't have a middle point here, it will actually affect the midtones overall, as you can see. So it's ideal to have a midpoint here as a starting point. And then even if you move the highlight above, it won't affect the midtones as much. But there's a problem here. We need to fix something before we even do that. And if you have a look at the histogram at the back here, this is showing us where the information is, and there's hardly any information in this sort of area, not that our eyes can see. So we're going to get this top point here and we're going to drag it right up until we think we're starting to lose detail. So right around here. And already we've improved this image by miles just by dragging this line across. So let's have a look at the before and after. That's a before, that's an after. And guys, remember, we haven't actually touched any of the tools in Adobe Lightroom. We're just playing with curves and that's what we've achieved. Let's have a look at this again. That's the before, that's the after. So that's what our starting point. If I was to push this a little bit further, you can see I'm starting to lose detail in the highlights here. So we're just going to push that back again. And there we go, we've got that back. And if you think you want to push it back a little bit more, that's fair enough. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a midpoint here and slightly drag the highlights back down. And you can see we are recovering a lot of the detail in the highlights here. And if we want to recover some of the details in the shadows, we can also do that by pushing this slider up. But I don't quite like this look. In fact, what I want to do is I want to go the opposite way. Let's just add a little bit of contrast in the shadows, so you can see I'm not doing that much. If I go all the way to the right, what it's doing to the image, we don't want that. We just want to touch a bit of shadows. There we go, and that's it. Let me just show you the before and after. So that's a before and that's the after. Now this is a daytime image and we've got a lot more information in here. You can see by the histogram in the background, and let's see what we can do with this. So this time let's get the top point and drag it to the left, and you can see we're starting to lose detail right about here. So we want to go back. That's about right. Let's just check the before and after. It's always important to check the before and after just to make sure you're not overdoing it. That's fine, I'm happy with that. Let's create a middle point here by clicking on the line, and we're going to get the bottom point, the shadows. We're going to bring that back. As you can see, the histogram here, it starts from about just further in, so we can drag it slightly to the right just from when it starts. And let's go a little bit further to add a little bit more contrast. Let's check out the before and after. So that's the before, that's the after. And again, this is without touching any other tool in Adobe Lightroom. By the way, if you're enjoying these quick straight to the point videos, a subscribe to the channel would be awesome. Let's get straight back into it. Let's just backtrack a little bit and see what's really going on. All we're doing is, by modifying this line, is controlling the brightness levels of the image. So if I put a point in the middle, for example, and I move this up and down, all I'm doing is controlling the midtones of the image. These are the midtones that you can see that have been affected. And if you're not sure, what you can always do is you can put the point in the middle and move it up and down, and it will show you what part of the image is being affected. And if I move this bottom point up and down here, it's actually affecting the luminosity of the shadows, and same with this top point. So this is the highlights, shadows, midtones, highlights. What I used to do is put these points in place and modify them to see what difference it makes, and soon I just figured out this was shadows, this was midtones, and this was highlights. It just stuck in there. Right, now that we're absolutely sure we know what these points do, let's just modify them a little bit again. Starting with this image again, what I would really like to do is put another point in place, because if I delete this point, for example, and if I modify this, you can see it's affecting a lot of this curve here. But if I put another point in place and modify this, it doesn't move this point here, and you can see what difference it's making to the image. This is quite a popular look on Instagram, or it was a popular look, and this is what everyone was doing to achieve this type of look. Let me just reset that. So all you have to do is put a point here, and then move this up slightly. That's it. Let's have a look at the before and after. That's a before, that's an after. You can see it adds this fadey film look effect to the overall image, which a lot of people quite like. Let's just put another point here and see what happens if I drag this down. You can see it's crushing the highlights now. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the midtones down slightly. Let's bring that down as well. And the before and after. And again guys, we are not touching anything else in Adobe Lightroom. We are just playing around with curves at the moment, and this is the difference. This is the power of curves. This is what you can do. Again, I've memorized these patterns over time. There's loads more patterns that you will come across, and you can actually experiment with these and see what you can achieve. Possibilities are literally endless. You can have so much fun with luminosity curves just to achieve your desired effect. The only thing I would recommend is always do the before and after. You don't want to overdo it with curves, so you don't want to do something like this. You might do, I mean, this might be your look, but I don't think this looks particularly great. You can really easily get carried away with curves, so I would always recommend to do the before and after just by clicking this little switch here. As you can see, not a great look, just looks washed out. Let's just take a look at another image and see what we can do just by using the curves tool. Alright, so here's a picture I managed to capture in Varanasi, India, of a little boy holding his baby brother. Let's see what we can do with this. You can see there's not much information here on the graph, so we're just going to drag the highlights and start from here. And we're going to put a midpoint right in the middle, and we'll put one here. And this time I'm just going to drag that in to create a little bit more contrast. So with the highlights, I want to actually crush the highlights, and I'm going to show you what that means. So put another point here and get the highlights and bring them back down. Let's bring that down as well. Although you might not be able to see what I'm doing, I'm just going to do the before and after so you can see now. So that's the before, that's the after. So let's just zoom in slightly. Before, after. So as you can see, I've darkened the shadows in this image by bringing this bottom point back. What I could always do is I could bring this point up and lift the shadows. And let's have a look at the before and after. That's the before and after for this. So again, very quickly you can do a lot to an image just by adding a few points to this line and moving them about. This is not something that you will pick up just by watching this video. You will need to put this in practice yourself. But the reason why I'm making this video is just to show you that there's nothing to be scared of. And I know a lot of people prevent using curves just because it doesn't look that user friendly. So I hope this video has been helpful for you guys, and if there's any other questions that you have with regards to this video, do drop me a comment below. I'd really appreciate that. And I just want to thank everybody who has supported me with my YouTube journey. I hope all the video tutorials that I've been making have been helpful, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.